Hi. Today I want to talk about this book, Legacy Code First Aid Kit. This is the printed version of a book that has been published some time ago, but has been quite successful. And so now the author, Nicolas Carlo, has also produced the printed version. So good moment to catch your copy. And I interviewed Nicola a few months ago for a podcast I've been working on. I've yet to publish the interview. Shame on myself. But in order to prepare for the interview, I read the book. I reread the book. I read it some time ago, but I read it again before the interview to prepare it. And now I got the printed copy and took another look and refreshed my memory. And first of all, from my point of view, it's very interesting because when I think about legacy code and refactoring legacy code, I always thinking about refactoring very old legacy code written in very old languages. So to me, modernizing legacy code means take your code from SAS, COBOL, RPG, VB6, some forgotten 4GL, and translate it into a modern language. And it's a limited view because in reality there is a lot of legacy code that maybe is written in languages that are not per se legacy, in the sense they're still maintained, like JavaScript, but also Java or Python or whatever. And given the code base has a certain age, the practices, the language itself, the ecosystem evolved, now the code base could use some refactoring. And so this is the kind of legacy code that the author is focusing on. And it's, for me, very interesting because there are a lot of interesting ideas that even if I feel it's a different game, changing language while refactoring within the language, there are some very good ideas that we can take inspiration from and apply to our problem. So moving to modern languages. Of course, you should read the book, so I will not give you too many spoilers, but there are things that I'm that I find very close to my way to look at things. For example, the accent on some databases approach. So, for example, the author talk about calculating the churn to identify the files that change more frequently or measure complexity. And for me, this is valuable because the first things that I read about refactoring legacy code were very vague suggestions, like, based on the gut feelings, common sense, and long experience of the author, and I couldn't apply them. While when there are, data-driven techniques, I'm not saying that there are the only techniques that make sense, but they're easier to adopt because you just do the calculation, apply the algorithm, get some data that then you need to interpret with your own experience, but you have a starting point. And so I found that interesting. Then, for example, another thing that I found interesting is the section on acceptance test, because also with legacy code in a modern language, there is the problem that there is no definition of what the system should do. So this technique consists in basically exercising a piece of test, recording whatever it's doing, and then use that to safeguard you from introducing regression. So you then refactor the code and verify that it's still behaving as before. And this is similar to some of the techniques used to test that a migration was successful. There are other things that are more difficult to translate, like these ideas of incrementality, taking inspiration from the Mikado method. It's more difficult to apply when you move from one language to another, because it's not always possible to do that incrementally. But all in all, I think this has been a very good source of inspiration, and I think it's very good that there are people that spend their time rescuing code bases that have a lot of value if you are able to look besides that, let's say, the rusty aspects with some maybe superficial technical problem. And so if you can look behind, you can see that there is value trapped in the business logic expressed in that application, what the code does, even if the code maybe is at some point not very well expressed in a sense. And so I think there is a lot of value, and it's a lot easier to think, oh, I will start from scratch, I will build something new, while you can provide much more value, bringing back in a good shape an existing already valuable code base. And so, yes, I think we need more people to focusing on this aspect. So let's take a look at this book. I also like the format that feels a little bit different than the format of typical European book that I think are not as wide. And by the way, it's also very well printed with a lot of high quality images and explanations. So definitely something practical, applicable, and something worth taking a look. So yeah, and at some point I will also publish this amazing interview with Nicolas. But in the meantime, learn from the actual book. So thank you and see you soon.